The smell of burning oil floated through the alien marketplace. It mixed with the sound of strange music and the calls of traders selling glowing fruits, shining crystals, and strange metal toys. Captain Rylan walked between the stalls, tired from a long patrol. He had seen many worlds before, but this one always felt different, alive and dangerous. He stopped when he heard a small cry. It was soft, almost lost in the noise of the market. He turned his head and saw a stall surrounded by laughing aliens. In the center of it stood a tall gray cook with sharp black eyes and long arms. In front of him was a grill glowing with red heat. Two small creatures were tied together beside the fire. They looked like little puppies, but their fur glowed blue, and their ears shimmered like glass. Their eyes were wide, full of fear and tears. The alien cook held a metal fork and laughed. Fresh food. Galaxy's finest meat. Rylan froze. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. To everyone around him, it was just food. But to him, they looked alive, scared, innocent. He stepped closer, his voice calm but firm. "Stop this," he said. "They're alive." The cook turned toward him, annoyed. "Human, don't tell me how to cook," he hissed. "They're just beasts." Rylan shook his head. "No, they're not," he said. "You can see it in their eyes." The crowd began to whisper, some curious, others amused. Humans were known for strange emotions: pity, love, courage. The cook smirked, lowering the grill closer to the flames. "If you want them, human, buy them," he said, "or walk away." Rylan's eyes narrowed. "How much?" he asked. The cook grinned. "Too much for a soldier's pocket." The heat rose, the smell grew stronger. The puppies whimpered again, and that sound tore through Rylan's chest. He stepped forward without thinking. "Enough!" he shouted. Before anyone could stop him, he reached out and grabbed the grill with his bare hand. The metal burned his skin instantly, pain shooting through his arm. But he didn't let go. He slammed the grill aside, spilling the fire across the ground. The crowd gasped. The cook jumped back, angry and shocked. Rylan pulled a knife from his belt and cut the ropes around the puppies. His hand was shaking, bleeding, but he kept going. The small creatures cried and pressed against his arm. They were safe now, trembling but alive. The cook screamed, "You'll pay for this, human." He grabbed a sharp blade from his table. The crowd moved back, forming a wide circle around them. Two guards appeared, their armor shining under the bright market lights. They raised their weapons, confused by what was happening. The cook shouted in his alien tongue, pointing at Rylan. "He attacked me. He destroyed my food." Rylan turned to the guards, his voice calm. "They're not food," he said, holding the puppies close. "They're children." The guards looked at the glowing creatures. Their small bodies moved gently, breathing fast, eyes full of fear. One guard lowered his weapon slowly. "This isn't right," he muttered. The cook growled, angry and helpless. "You humans always think you're better than us," he spat, "always pretending to be heroes." Rylan didn't answer. He wrapped his burned hand with a piece of cloth and started to walk away. The market was silent now. Everyone watched as he disappeared into the crowd, carrying the two glowing puppies in his arms. Some aliens looked guilty, others confused. A few even whispered softly, "Human hero." When Rylan turned a corner, he stopped for a moment. His hand throbbed with pain, but he looked down at the small creatures and smiled faintly. They stared back at him with bright blue eyes full of trust. "You're safe now," he whispered. "I promise." He didn't know who they were or where they came from. He didn't care. All he knew was that they were alive, and someone had to protect them. Behind him, the market returned to its noise and light. But the story of what happened spread fast. The tale of a human who burned his own hand to save alien life. And far away, beyond the marketplace, unseen eyes were already watching. Eyes that knew these were no ordinary puppies. Rylan walked through the narrow back alleys of the alien city. His burned hand pulsed with pain under the rough cloth, but he didn't stop. The two alien puppies clung to his chest, wrapped in his jacket, their glowing fur faintly lighting his path. He knew he had crossed a line. Interfering with alien customs was forbidden, but his heart didn't care about rules. He finally reached an old supply hangar at the edge of the marketplace. It was dark, dusty, and quiet, perfect for hiding. He closed the door behind him, breathing heavily. The puppies were trembling, small hearts beating fast. He laid them gently on a blanket and whispered, "You're safe now, little ones." For a while, they just stared at him. Their big, glowing eyes watched every move he made. One of them, the smaller one, stepped closer and touched his burned hand with its tiny paw. A soft blue light spread from its paw into his skin. The pain faded instantly, replaced by a strange warmth. Rylan looked down in disbelief. The burn mark was gone. His skin looked new, healed, smooth. What are you?" he whispered. The puppy tilted its head, as if it understood. Then both of them curled together and fell asleep beside him, glowing softly like stars in the dark. Rylan sat beside them, thinking. He had rescued alien creatures before, but none like these. Healing energy, glowing fur, strange intelligence. They weren't ordinary animals. Outside, the night air shifted. Footsteps echoed in the distance, heavy, metallic. Rylan stood up, instantly alert. He moved to the small window and peeked outside. Two armored aliens were scanning the area with glowing scanners. He recognized their insignia, the Kultar enforcers. The same guards from the marketplace, but these ones carried rifles, not staffs. They were hunting something, or someone. He cursed under his breath. "They tracked me," he muttered. He grabbed his small bag and gently lifted the puppies. The smaller one stirred and gave a tiny whimper. "Shoo," he whispered. "We need to move." He opened a side door and slipped into the night, staying close to the shadows. The city lights reflected off tall metal towers. Neon signs flickered in strange languages. Rylan moved fast, ducking between containers and bridges. Every few seconds, he heard the distant hum of a drone searching above. When he finally reached the city's edge, the streets ended in a wide field of glowing mist. It was the Sulthar Wastes, a forbidden zone filled with gas and ruins. No one dared to go there, which made it the perfect hiding place. Rylan stepped into the mist, coughing slightly as the air shimmered around him. He walked for what felt like hours until he found a small broken structure, maybe an old watch post. He entered and placed the puppies down again. They looked tired, their glow dimming. Rylan smiled weakly. "You two have had a long day," he said, sitting beside them. But then, the smaller one lifted its head and made a strange sound, soft and musical. The walls around them glowed faintly in response. Lines of light appeared, ancient symbols waking from the stone. Rylan stared in shock. The entire room began to hum with power. "What is this place?" he whispered. The puppies stood side by side, their eyes bright with that same blue light. The larger one barked softly, and in that sound, Rylan felt meaning. Not words, but emotion, trust, safety, bond. They weren't just creatures. They were connected to something old, something powerful. Suddenly, the ground outside shook. A ship descended through the mist, dark, heavy, silent. Rylan rushed to the doorway and saw the insignia again, Kultar Command. A voice echoed through a speaker. "Human, you are in violation of local law. Surrender the specimens." He looked down at the puppies, their eyes shining brighter now. "No," he said quietly. "You're not getting them." He picked up his blaster, charged it, and stood ready. The mist thickened around him as he whispered, "If I die, at least I'll die doing something right." The puppies moved beside him, glowing stronger. And for a brief moment, Rylan thought he saw their glow-formed shapes in the air, like shields or wings of light. Then the door burst open. Blinding light filled the ruin. Rylan raised his weapon, and the story of mercy turned into the first spark of war. The door exploded open with a flash of blue energy. Metal shards flew across the dark room, and Rylan hit the ground, shielding the glowing puppies with his body. Smoke filled the air as armored figures stepped through the mist, their eyes hidden behind glass helmets. The Kultar soldiers moved fast and silent, scanning the room for the targets. "Human, surrender the creatures," one of them said through a metallic voice filter. Rylan coughed and raised his blaster, his hands trembling. "They're not weapons," he shouted. "They're alive." The leader ignored him, stepping forward with a plasma spear glowing in his hand. Rylan fired first. A single bolt of red light shot across the room, hitting a soldier's armor and sending him back against the wall. The others returned fire instantly, blue beams slicing through the mist. Rylan rolled behind a fallen beam, breathing hard. Sparks lit the darkness as the stone walls cracked under the heat. The puppies whimpered, their glowing fur flickering like candlelight. Rylan looked at them and whispered, "Stay down, please." He peeked out and fired again, but his energy cell was running low. The blaster beeped a weak warning. Suddenly, the smaller puppy stood up. Its body shone brighter, light spilling from its fur like liquid fire. The ground trembled, and a wave of blue energy burst outward. The soldiers were thrown back as if struck by a shockwave, their weapons sparking and dying. Rylan stared in awe. The air shimmered around the puppies, forming shapes, glowing symbols floating like stars. The larger one barked, and those symbols pulsed. It was as if they were speaking to the ruins themselves. One of the soldiers tried to rise, his armor flickering. "What are those things?" he gasped. Rylan stood, still shielding them. "They're not things," he said quietly. "They're someone's children." Outside, the mist parted as the alien dropship adjusted its engines. A deep humming sound shook the walls. More soldiers were coming. Rylan grabbed his gear and turned to the puppies. "We have to go now." The smaller one jumped into his arms, while the other followed close. Together they ran through a side tunnel glowing with faint blue light. Ancient carvings lined the walls, showing strange beings, tall, elegant, with eyes like stars, carrying creatures that looked exactly like the puppies. Rylan's heart pounded. "These ruins belong to your kind," he whispered. "You're not pets, you're heirs." He reached an exit that opened to a valley of broken towers under a swirling sky. The mist glowed faintly under alien moons. Rylan ran, his boots splashing through shallow puddles. Behind him, the dropship landed with a roar, lights sweeping across the ruins. A voice boomed again. "Human, stop. You are interfering with a royal investigation." He didn't stop. He ducked behind a fallen pillar, catching his breath. The puppies hid under his jacket, shivering. He could feel their hearts beating against his chest. "I'm not letting them take you," he muttered. "Not after what I saw." Then something unexpected happened. A holographic projection appeared above the ruins, a tall alien figure dressed in gold and white. Her eyes burned like twin suns, calm but commanding. She spoke in a soft voice that echoed through the valley. "Human, you have taken what does not belong to you," she said. "Return them, and you may leave unharmed." Rylan looked up, confused. "Who are you?" he asked. The hologram tilted her head. "I am High Emissary Valira, guardian of the last Linares kin, the royal creatures you carry." Rylan looked down at the glowing puppies. "They're royal," he whispered. Valira's image nodded. "They are the children of our sacred guardians, thought lost in the last war." She paused. "You saved them from cruelty, human, but you do not understand their value." Rylan took a deep breath. "I don't care about their value," he said. "I care that they're alive." For a moment, the hologram flickered, and the great emissary smiled faintly. "Strange words for a human," she said softly. "Perhaps the stories of your kind are true, that you act not for gain, but for heart." Before Rylan could answer, a beam of light struck the ground beside him, a warning shot from one of the soldiers. The hologram vanished instantly. He looked back at the puppies, who now glowed brighter than ever. "All right, little stars," he whispered. "Looks like we're running again." He turned toward the far mountains, where faint blue light rose into the clouds. The ancient ruins of Linares Prime. He didn't know what waited there, but he knew one thing. The galaxy had just changed, and so had he. The storm came quickly. Rylan pushed forward through sheets of silver rain. The puppies held close beneath his jacket. Lightning cracked across the alien sky, showing brief flashes of twisted towers and stone bridges half buried in sand. Every sound echoed through the ruins, making it feel like ghosts were whispering in the wind. He had been walking for hours toward the blue light he had seen from the valley. The signal pulsed like a heartbeat in the distance, the mark of Linares Prime, the lost capital of the glowing kind. The puppies had stopped shaking now, their eyes calm, as if they knew where they were going. Rylan felt strange comfort from their warmth. He reached a ridge and saw a massive crater below. In the center stood a single tower made of white stone that shimmered like moonlight. Vines grew along its sides, glowing faintly. For a moment he simply stared. It looked like a temple built by stars. He began to climb down the rocky path, but stopped when a beam of light swept across him. A drone, black and silent, hovered above the ridge. Its lens turned red, locking on. Rylan cursed. They never stopped chasing, he muttered, pulling his blaster free. He fired once, hitting the drone's core. It exploded into a ball of sparks that lit the rain like fireworks. He didn't wait to watch it fall. He ran, sliding down into the crater, mud splashing around his boots. At the base of the tower, the air hummed with strange energy. He reached the door, a huge stone gate covered in symbols similar to the ones he'd seen in the ruins before. When he stepped closer, the puppies jumped from his arms and placed their tiny paws on the carvings. Light spread across the gate like flowing water. The stone shifted and opened silently. Rylan stepped inside, and the world changed. It wasn't dark. It was filled with floating lights, blue and silver, drifting like fireflies. The floor glowed under his feet, showing reflections of galaxies far away. He whispered, "This isn't a ruin, it's alive." The puppies ran forward happily, barking softly. A soft voice echoed through the air, calm and melodic. "Welcome home, little ones," it said. Rylan froze, looking around. The lights formed into the image of a tall figure made of energy, graceful, shining. She looked like an ancient spirit, her eyes kind but sad. "You are human," she said. "We haven't seen your kind here in centuries." Rylan hesitated. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to intrude. I only wanted to protect them." The spirit smiled gently. "You have done what many would not. These two are the last of the Nirax kin, born from light itself. They carry the memory of our world." Rylan looked down at the puppies, now sitting quietly beside the glowing figure. "They healed my wounds," he said softly. "They saved me as much as I saved them." "That is their gift," she said, "and their curse." Before he could ask, the tower trembled. The walls dimmed, and a deep rumble echoed from above. The spirit's expression turned grave. "They found you," she said. "You brought their hunters to this sacred place." Rylan turned to the doorway. He could already hear engines and the sharp hum of weapons charging. He gritted his teeth. "I didn't mean to, but I won't let them take the pups." The spirit's light flickered. "There may still be a way," she said. "The core of Linares Prime still burns beneath this tower. If it awakens, it will protect the kin, but it needs a living link, a heart that chooses them over itself." Rylan stared at her, understanding slowly forming. "You mean me?" The spirit nodded. "If you give your strength to the core, you may not return. But they will live, and your name will live with them." Outside, thunder cracked again, and the first explosion hit the gate. Rylan looked at the two small faces staring up at him, trusting completely. He smiled faintly. "I never thought I'd die for puppies," he whispered. "But I guess there are worse ways to go." He placed his burned hand on the glowing floor. Energy rushed through him, burning and cold at the same time. He saw flashes, stars forming, planets rising, civilizations living and fading. The tower shook harder, the spirit's light growing brighter. The puppies howled, a high, beautiful sound that filled the chamber like a song. Outside, the soldiers stopped firing for a moment, looking up in confusion as blue light shot from the cracks in the tower. The storm clouds parted, and a beam of light reached the heavens. The spirit whispered, "It begins again." Rylan closed his eyes, his body fading into the glow. But just before the light swallowed him completely, he felt two warm paws press against his chest. Then everything went silent. That was the first thing Rylan noticed. No rain, no thunder, no explosions, only a soft hum, like breathing light. He opened his eyes slowly and found himself floating in a place that didn't seem real. A white ocean stretched around him, glowing faintly like liquid moonlight. Above him, endless stars shimmered in patterns he didn't recognize. He tried to move, but felt weightless. Then a voice spoke gently inside his head. "You are within the core, Rylan of Earth," it said. "The Linares have accepted your gift." He turned and saw the two glowing puppies drifting beside him, larger now, their bodies surrounded by gentle rings of light. Their eyes sparkled like twin suns, full of life and warmth. He smiled weakly. "You're safe. That's all that matters." The voice continued. "You merged with the heart of this world. Your energy saved them, and us." Rylan frowned. "Us? Who are you?" The air shimmered, and a figure appeared. The same luminous spirit he had seen before, now more solid. She bowed slightly. "I am Lysera, last guardian of Linares Prime." Because of you, our world breathes again. He looked around in confusion. Then, I'm dead. Lysera shook her head, her light flickering softly. Not yet. You exist between what was and what is. The core has chosen you as its keeper. Rylan let out a slow breath. A keeper, huh? I was just a soldier who couldn't walk away from a fire. Lysera smiled. And that is why you were chosen. The core responds to heart, not rank. As she spoke, the scene shifted. The white sea turned into a vision, the tower of Linares glowing brighter than ever. Outside, the soldiers were gone. Their dropship melted into silver dust. Vines of blue energy spread through the ruins, repairing what was once broken. The puppies, no, the young guardians, stood on the temple steps, their bodies radiant, calling to the stars. Lysera said softly, they carry your courage now, as part of their light. Rylan felt a strange warmth spread through him. He could see flashes of memory not his own. Ancient cities, voices of beings who sang to the moons, laughter that echoed like music. He touched his chest, and light rippled beneath his skin. What happens to me now? He asked quietly. Lysera looked distant, her tone full of both peace and sorrow. You are no longer only human. You are bound to Linares itself. Your body will walk again, but your soul belongs to both worlds. Before he could respond, a tremor shook the space around them. The calm sea rippled violently, and streaks of red light pierced the horizon. Lysera's calm broke. Something is wrong, she said sharply. The core is being attacked, from orbit. Rylan's instincts returned in an instant. Who's doing this? The Kulthar Empire, she replied, her voice trembling. They've discovered the tower's awakening. They mean to destroy what they can't control. He clenched his fists. Then send me back. Lysera looked surprised. You're not ready. You are still between life and death. Rylan shook his head. I've been a soldier my whole life. I don't need perfect. I just need purpose. For a moment, she simply looked at him, at the stubborn human who stood against an empire for two small creatures. Then she smiled softly. Very well. But remember, the bond cannot be undone. When you fight, the world fights with you. Lights surged around him, flooding his vision. He gasped, and suddenly he was standing again, but not as before. His armor glowed with blue veins of energy, his hands radiating faint light. He felt stronger, faster, connected to every living thing around him. Outside, the sky was on fire. Alien warships filled the heavens, dropping energy bombs onto the valley. The young Linares guardians cried out, their voices echoing like thunder. Rylan raised his hand, and to his shock, the light responded, forming a shimmering shield that covered the tower. Beams of plasma struck the barrier but dissolved into blue sparks. Lysera's voice whispered in his mind. The bond holds, but not for long. You must reach the source, their flagship. Rylan looked to the burning sky, eyes fierce. So be it, he said, gripping his weapon as the shield flickered. He turned to the glowing puppies who stood by his side like loyal warriors. Let's show them, he said softly, what a human heart can do. The tower's gate burst open, and a beam of light lifted them toward the stars. As they ascended, the air shimmered around Rylan, his human form merging with streaks of energy. He wasn't sure if he was still entirely himself, but he didn't care. Somewhere deep inside, he heard Lysera whisper one last line. Humanity, remembered forever. The light carried Rylan higher and higher. The world of Linares shrank beneath him, glowing like a blue jewel in the darkness. Around him, streaks of silver energy spiraled as the two young guardians floated beside him, their fur shining brighter than ever. The stars stretched across the void, and in the distance, enormous alien ships hovered like shadows swallowing the light. The Kulthar fleet. Dozens of warships shaped like spears pointed toward the planet, their cannons glowing red. Rylan clenched his fists, feeling the pulse of power flow through him, the living connection to Linares. It hummed inside his chest, a mix of warmth and electricity. He whispered to the puppies, ready to save your home? They barked softly, glowing brighter in answer. The beam of light that carried them faded, leaving them floating in the dark between the planet and the ships. Rylan looked around and laughed quietly to himself. A human in space without a ship, that's new, he said. But somehow he wasn't suffocating. A faint blue aura surrounded him, the bond's protection. The nearest warship detected his energy signature. Target located. A voice echoed from the fleet's comms. Eliminate the anomaly. Ryland saw the cannons turn toward him. He took a deep breath and raised his hands. Blue lines of energy burst from his palms, forming a shimmering barrier in front of him. When the first blast hit, it shattered into waves of light that rippled across space like water. "All right," Ryland muttered. "My turn." He pointed both hands forward, and two brilliant streams of light shot toward the warship. They cut through its armor like fire through paper. The ship exploded in silence, flames dancing through the void. The smaller Linares Guardian barked and darted ahead, leaving trails of blue fire. It struck another cruiser, its body expanding into a burst of light that overloaded the ship's systems. Ryland followed, weaving between explosions, his body moving faster than thought. He wasn't flying. He was becoming part of the energy that flowed through the stars. Inside the flagship, the Kultar commander, a tall creature with silver armor and insect-like wings, watched the battle from his bridge. "What is that thing?" one officer cried. "He's destroying the fleet." The commander's eyes narrowed. "That's no thing. That's the human the reports mentioned." He raised his staff. "Prepare the ion pulse. I want him alive." Outside, Ryland stopped as a massive sphere of red energy formed above the flagship. It pulsed like a dark sun. He heard Lysera's voice whisper faintly in his mind. "Be careful. That weapon feeds on emotion." He frowned. Emotion? Then he felt it. Anger, fear, sorrow, the pain of all the destruction the Kultar had caused. The weapon absorbed it, growing larger. Ryland gritted his teeth. Not this time. He closed his eyes. He thought of the puppies trembling by the fire. He thought of their tiny eyes full of hope. He thought of how small acts of kindness had led him here, one man against an empire. His chest glowed brighter. The energy inside him shifted, no longer wild, but calm, pure. When he opened his eyes, the darkness around him turned blue. The young guardians howled beside him, their light joining his. Together, they formed a circle of energy that expanded outward like a wave. The red sphere tried to strike first. It fell toward them like a burning meteor. Ryland raised his hand, his voice steady. Not today. The blue wave met the red fire in the center of space. For a moment, everything froze. Then a blinding flash tore across the stars. The shockwave sent the smaller ships spinning out of orbit, and the flagship cracked in half. But the blue light held steady, protecting Linares below. Ryland floated in the quiet aftermath, his body dimming. He looked at the young guardians, tired but unharmed. He smiled weakly. "You did great, little ones." His voice trembled. "Now, it's your galaxy." But before he could fade, a beam of white light surrounded him. Lysera's voice called out again. "It's not over yet. Your story still has a path." He blinked as the stars blurred. The wreckage of the fleet disappeared, replaced by a peaceful night sky. He stood once again on the surface of Linares. The tower behind him was whole, glowing like a heartbeat. And in the distance, figures approached, tall, radiant, their eyes filled with wonder. The ancient people of Linares had awakened, and at their feet, the human stood, glowing faintly, his eyes reflecting the stars. A whisper ran through the wind. "He's the one who brought light back to the dead world." Ryland looked up at the sky. The puppies circled around his legs, playful and bright. He smiled, tired but content. "Guess humans really can surprise the universe," he said softly. The glow of Linares Prime spread across the valley, bathing the ruins in soft blue light. Ryland stood at the edge of the tower steps, the two young guardians circling around him, their fur shining brighter than the twin moons above. The storm had passed, and for the first time, the air felt still, calm, alive. The distant stars twinkled like a million tiny fires, as if applauding the events that had just unfolded. He looked out over the planet, taking in the repaired ruins, the rivers of glowing energy winding like veins through the land. He remembered the marketplace, the grill, the terrified puppies that had started it all. He had never imagined that one small act of courage would change not just lives, but entire worlds. Lysera appeared before him, radiant and ethereal. "Human," she said softly. "The galaxy will not forget what you have done." Ryland shook his head. "I didn't do this for fame. I just couldn't let them die." Her gaze softened. "That is why your story will last." Humanity has a heart that does not always follow reason, and that heart can bend destiny itself. The puppies jumped onto his shoulders and chest, wagging and glowing. They were laughing in their own way, little beams of light flicking like stars across his armor. Rylan chuckled. I guess you two really did save more than yourselves, he whispered. You saved me too. From the horizon, a fleet of alien ships approached, cautiously at first, then with awe. They were emissaries, scouts, and leaders of distant worlds. They had come to witness the power of Linares Prime's revival. The humans were absent from most corners of space, often underestimated. Yet here one man had stood against a galaxy-wide empire and emerged victorious. Rylan realized in that moment how fragile courage could be and how strong it could feel. A young alien child approached, bowing deeply. You saved our guardians, she said, her voice trembling. And now we have hope again. Rylan smiled, patting the glowing puppies. Then it's your world to protect now, he said, not mine. He turned to leave the tower, feeling the energy of the planet coursing through him. His body still human, but his soul intertwined with Linares. Every step he took left faint trails of blue light, marking the path for those who might follow. The puppies ran ahead, playful, yet regal, carrying the light of an entire world on their small shoulders. Above him, the galaxy watched, and whispers began to spread. Stories of a human who had risked his hand, his life, for two tiny creatures. A human who had defied empire, fire, and fear to protect innocence. In every corner of space where light flickered in the dark, the tale would travel. He is the keeper of light, they said, the human who remembered what it means to be alive. Rylan stopped on a cliff, looking at the endless stars. He felt a strange peace, the calm of someone who had faced the impossible and survived. He remembered every moment, the fire, the fear, the energy, the bond with the young guardians. All of it had led him here, to a place where courage was stronger than hate, and mercy brighter than any weapon. The puppies barked softly, nuzzling against him. He laughed quietly. Looks like we're famous now, he said. One of them jumped onto his shoulder, its glow reflecting in his eyes. You know, he whispered, maybe humans really can change the universe, just by caring. Far above, the stars shimmered in response. Galaxies shifted slightly, as if acknowledging the bravery of one human in the endless dark. The light of Linares Prime spread further, reaching worlds that had almost forgotten hope. And for the first time, Rylan felt what it meant to belong, not to a planet or a species, but to the heart of all life. He looked down at the puppies, smiling faintly. You saved yourselves, he said, but you saved me too. And as the first rays of twin suns touched the valley, he whispered to the wind. Humanity remembered. The galaxy listened. And somewhere, far across the stars, life learned that a single act of courage could echo forever.